On the west side of the highway, opposite the monastery church, is nearly 2,000 acres of wood and field. One fall morning during my retreat, I grabbed my jacket and Bible and walked into that dense wood. This would have been about 7:45 in the morning, right after mid-morning prayer at the monastery. The sun was bright. It was quickly burning away the frost that had paid us a visit the night before. I followed an old logging trail for a good mile. Maple, oak, and hickory trees towered over my head. After I'd gotten deep into the woods, I glanced at my watch to see that my watch said the 8:15 hour was approaching, and I was wondering if I would hear the bells from the monastery at that distance. So I stopped, and standing very still, I listened. I could not hear it. In fact, I could hear nothing of human origin. No car passing by on lonely Highway 247. No airplane slicing through the clear blue sky. No tractor harvesting the stand of corn on a distant farm. Just quiet. Started walking down one knob. The Knobs is a hill in central Kentucky. They're called knobs. I'm walking down a knob, and the old logging trail that I'm on is veering to the right, and presently a meadow opened up in front of me, in a quiet little valley. Sunlight bathed the meadow, not with streams of narrow light that had been the case when I was first started out, but with bright light that was unencumbered. The whole valley, the little meadow was just bathed and washed in light. I felt in a strange way that I had stumbled upon a secret that only maybe the animals knew. And then I saw it. There in the middle of the meadow was the rusted remains of an old well. You know, the old pump kind where you have to pump the well to get the water out? That's it. I walked through the wet grass and over to the well, my boots growing dark with the wetness of the grass. I reached out and touched the well, and I realized that this old rusted well pump was the only remains of Herman Haincamp's old hermitage, where Herman, the former monk over at the monastery, had lived as a hermit for decades. I hiked no further. I sat down on a nearby log that must have been felled years ago, opened my Bible, and for the next hours read, prayed, and soaked in the sweet silence of the meadow. No person walked by, never saw a soul. Light. Being on a journey, a path. These are the elements that make up the process of conversion. The light of God. For God is light, and in him there is no darkness. Witness our gospel reading this morning, Jesus. The journey to God, as in Abram journeying from his native land to an unknown place where God is taking him. The path. A journey has to have a path. And the path to God is through Jesus Christ. Do not think, even for a moment, that this journey, this life, this path is only for people way back in the Bible. Or that it's only for priests and sisters. It's for you. While I was walking in that forest down on the grounds of the Abbey of Gethsemane, something new was around every corner on that logging trail that I was on. Something new was over every knob that I walked over. Even when I reached the meadow where Herman Haincamp's hermitage used to be, I could have kept going. The old logging trail continued on. There comes a time, though, when, like Jesus on the mountaintop in today's gospel reading, we must stop and allow God to bathe us in light. In other words, you and I must allow God to transfigure us. Change our figure from our own image and likeness, in which we have created ourselves, to God's image and likeness. That's all holiness is. Being fully in the image and likeness of God, being bathed in God's light. That's holiness. In our second reading this morning, it says, God called us to a holy life before time began. Be transfigured. Allow God through Jesus and His church to bathe you in light. Now, this process of conversion from sin to light, from darkness to light, from stale air to fresh air, it takes time. It takes a lifetime. And it's just that. It's a process. It's not a one-time shot. But the process is fluid. Here's what I mean. That meadow I told you about, and how nice it was and beautiful, and it was. But you know what? Years later, I walked back to that same meadow. Walked to it along the same logging trail, only in summer instead of fall. Totally different experience. Air was hot and humid, stifling really. You needed gills to breathe, it was so humid. The sunlight was oppressive because it was so strong and hot. The flies and gnats and mosquitoes drove me crazy. I'm doing this the whole time I'm walking down the trails. When I finally reached the meadow, Herman Hainkamp's old hermitage, the sight was sour to me. It was drudgery. Same logging trail. Same meadow. Different time. Different situation. That's how the journey is sometimes. Our prayer life becomes routine. It becomes sour. It becomes drudgery. Despair not. Stay on the path. Continue the journey. Stay in the light. But don't be afraid to move farther down the path, to go over the next knob. For while it is indeed true that we must stop now and then and allow God to bathe us in His light, for us to be transfigured at that place, it is equally true that we must also keep moving along the path that God has given us. We don't want to be like Peter, who in today's gospel wants to stay on the mountaintop and build tents, as nice as that is. Don't keep trying to make the meadow work for you when it no longer does. God is moving you on to a different place, bringing you even closer to Him than you are now. I looked at my watch in that late morning of that fall day back in that meadow. I closed up my Bible, stood up, took another look around the meadow. I had 50 minutes to make it back to the monastery for midday prayer, which is at 12:15 p.m. But before I started back, I stepped over to the old rusted well handle and thought how many times Herman must have pumped this thing to get water in all those decades that he was there, all alone in that valley, in that meadow. I did make it back to the monastery for midday prayer. And afterwards, while I was down in line in the cafeteria getting my lunch, I grabbed a glass and filled it with water. And my mind flashed back to that pump in the meadow at Hainkamp's old place. Nothing lasts except God. Be holy. Allow God to bathe you in His light.